Please be advised, this meeting is being broadcast over the internet. So from pre-K to 16 division, the 9 regional meetings conducted to explain the proposed TSI operational plan were finished in February, with the last one being held at Tyler Junior College. A total of 36 comments have been received thus far, and based on the feedback received during the meetings, in addition to the 36 comments, the plan will be updated and presented to the board at the April board meeting. Any questions about that? From the Workforce Academic Affairs and Research Division, Rex is going to provide a quick update on core curriculum.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Just a little quick update on what's been happening with the new core curriculum. As you know, the UEAC committee recommended and then ultimately the board approved a revision of the core curriculum to take effect in fall of 2014. So since last fall, 88 institutions have submitted new core curricula. They were reviewed by staff, by component area, and then a second reviewer looked at those results, and then I looked at and then approved the final results. And the staff did an outstanding job in their review. It was not without some question, concern, and even a little bit of controversy in some places. But we've worked with a lot of institutions in the past few weeks and put a lot of time and effort into it, and we have cleaned up most of it. We're still in the process of finalizing a little bit of the endpoints, so to speak. But all in all, I think it's been a good process, and a lot of institutions have said that it was a good process for them to go through, in the sense that it gave them a real opportunity to look at their curriculum and what they were doing with it, and whether it was trying to meet the needs and the kind of skills and knowledge that students need to go forward in their careers, and in both in their college careers and in their professional lives. And so we tend to think it's been a really good exercise, and I know that a lot of institutions have put a lot of hard work and time and attention into this, as well as the coordinating board staff.
Will there be a final report in April?
We can give you one if you would like.
If needed. If not, that's fine. All right, agenda item 2, consideration of approval of the minutes from the December 11, 2013 committee meeting.
Move approval.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is consideration of approval of the consent calendar. Items are 5F, H, and I. Have a second? Second. Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is public testimony. There is no public testimony filed ahead of time. Agenda item 5, 5A1 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request for the Stephen F. Austin University for a Bachelor of Science degree with a major in engineering physics. Rex.
Thank you. This is a proposal from Stephen F. Austin for a bachelor's degree in science with a major in engineering physics. This is a program that draws on some of their existing resources and other engineering programs in their physics department as well. If you'll notice that one of the contingencies of this program is that the institution will hire 2 full-time faculty members to be assigned to the program in the first 5 years, and as with any other program that comes before the board, they will be required to submit annual reports for 5 years so that we can sort of monitor the progress of such. It'll be a face-to-face program within the 120-hour limit, and as I noted, it will draw off a lot of their existing resources, and so the cost and revenue is covered with the program itself. And by the way, we also have 2 people from Stephen F. Austin here that would be glad to address any questions that you might have about it. Dr. Richard Berry, who's the provost, and Dr. Dan Bruton, who's the Associate Dean of the College of Science and Mathematics, are with us in the audience today.
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5A2 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from Texas Women's University for a doctoral of occupational therapy degree with a major in occupational therapy. Rex.
Yes, committee members, this is a proposal from TWU for a post-professional doctor of occupational therapy. And this is a practice doctorate. The institution already has a PhD in this particular area that covers research, and so this particular doctorate program would actually address the practice side of occupational therapy. It would also be I believe, the first in the state of its kind to operate as well. And as you can see, they have also draw off a lot of their own existing resources as well and meet revenue and cost estimates. And it appears that demand for this program is fairly strong. And like all the other programs, they will also be required to submit annual reports for 5 years so that we can monitor their progress on this as well.
Questions? Yeah.
Have they submitted a needs assessments on this particular program, and can they show that there's a need for a doctoral level degree in this particular field? Do you know that? I mean, why are we coming forward with another doctoral degree in this particular area? Is this a step towards initiating another level as entry into the profession, or is this the first step in terms of beginning a move towards a doctoral level entry into occupational therapy? I mean, I'm trying to figure out why is this here? Is anybody from the institution that can answer that?
I don't believe Andrew. This was Andrew Lofters is coordinating board staff that also worked on this proposal. So I'll ask him to come forward and address the issues. One of the things that it does point out in your proposal is that the employment of occupational therapists itself is expected to increase by 33% in coming years. And one of the things that the practice doctoral program is designed to do is to help create people to manage and supervise folks that are in that area. And so, Andrew, if you want to add to that.
And you are exactly correct. They did provide a need assessment inside the actual proposal. This doctoral program is for candidates that would be managers or leadership inside occupational therapy programs in hospitals and other centers that would provide this service. It's not based on a research method. It has a lot of mentoring and professional development in this doctoral level program, but it's not going to be the same as a PhD in the OTD. Now, I did ask that question specifically as to whether or not the program is moving towards having an entry-level doctorate. The organization that is over the OTD programs said they have been discussing it, but there has not been any action taken. So at this point, it is not being considered as a terminal degree for entry-level practice.
Is there anyone from their institution here today?
No, sir. No, sir.
Is there any information with regard to the details of the curriculum in this degree? I mean, do we know specifically what you're alluding to some of the things that they're teaching? The reason I'm asking is that I supported the DNP program when it was brought forward here a couple of years ago, and since then I've had an opportunity to interact with a number of students that have enrolled in our DNP programs in the state, and I'm a little bit disappointed, just me personally, when I've actually sat down and reviewed specifically what's being taught in those DNP programs, because I voted for it because I saw a need in the rural parts of the state to expand the primary care providers. And when I sit down and listen to students that are enrolled in the DNP programs, I realize I'm not talking to all of them, and I realize I'm just talking to a certain segment of them. But when they explain to me exactly what's in that DNP program, from what I can tell, there's very little clinical information in that program. And what I perceived that we needed the most was to expand the clinical knowledge of nurses so they could provide and play a bigger role in delivering primary care. So I have a tendency to want to question this a little more thoroughly than I did before, to make sure that what's being taught is relevant and needed and necessary. Because I'm just speaking for myself personally, from what I've seen and looking into the DNP programs, I hope that they'll stop and reassess what they're teaching there, because from my standpoint, I don't see a lot of substance in it. That's just me. Now, I'm sure there's others that would argue with me, but I really feel uncomfortable voting on something today without a representative from their institution here to answer questions. And if it was important enough for them to want it to be passed, I really think that they should have had somebody here today. My questions, unless you can answer them, I would like to know what details are in that curriculum. I want to know specifically whether or not there's going to be some, if this is a first step towards another doctoral program for entry level, and is that really necessary and needed? May or may not, but I think someone from their institution should be here to explain that to us.
If I might, as to your first question, the proposal from each institution, whatever they're applying for, does include the curriculum. So staff can go and make a copy of that curriculum that was submitted to us and share that with you. As you can see from the blue pages, we also had external consultants, and we have a report from their visit that may address some of your specific questions. I can't say, but that's probably no more than 5 pages. And so that both of those could be made available to you very quickly.
I do understand what Dennis is saying. We saw the pharmacists and physical therapists have done this, and now you cannot work as a physical therapist unless you have your doctorate, or a pharmacist unless you have a doctorate. So I understand what you're saying about the entry level being baseline doctorate level, and I agree with you. I don't think OT needs to have a entry level as a doctorate, but especially if we're going to serve that many more people that we need to in healthcare. But if you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this vote until I get some additional information, unless y'all want to give me the time to look through all that. I don't really particularly want to take up a lot of time today. If I'm okay.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Discussion.
So my understanding of this program is it would be an exclusively online program. It would take the student who already has the Master's of Occupational Therapy, so it would be an add-on program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It adds 27 semester credit hours on top of Master's in Occupational Therapy. And in your blue pages, it does mention the fact that the consultants themselves pointed out that it includes 5 practice-oriented courses. So there are courses in it that are oriented toward the practice of occupational therapy itself, at least 15 of that 27 hours. And there are some independent studies set up in this program also with mentors.
And is 27, is that a national standard? That seems awfully low for a doctorate program.
From the research that I did when I first started reviewing this program, that is pretty comparable for other programs around the nation. It's not made it into this region as of yet. It's mostly on the East Coast, somewhat in the upper Midwest, and on the southern eastern side of the country. It hasn't made in this area yet. This will be the first one. But when I looked at all of their semester credit hours for the other doctoral programs, it's comparable. I'd say about 30, 36 is about the average.
And in your research, was there a national association of occupational therapists? Do they have some type of a mission statement saying that they're trying to move to the doctorate being the entry level in the future? Is there? I mean, the other ones that Dr. Golden was talking about specifically had that as part of their mission, and so I don't know. Is that where the occupational therapists lobby wants to take their field?
No, that's not what they're saying at this present moment. They're going to keep the MOT, the Master of Occupational Therapy, as their entry-level degree.
Yeah.
This one is just for, and it's really, they don't consider it to be clinical. They consider it to be more of a leadership in a doctoral level for occupational therapy. The clinical part is basically taken care of in your MOT degree.
And are they having a difficult time attracting the PhD candidates, or they have plenty of faculty right now to be able to staff and train the master's level programs? Because we found that to be the case, and now all of a sudden it's attractive for certain of the professions to go get a doctor and not the PhD, and then not enter teaching. And nursing is a big part of that, where now we've created a different pathway for them to get a doctor, but they're not
Doing
returning
research,
to help
right.
educate the next group of nurses.
And right now, this program is so new that there are very few occupational OTDs in the actual field teaching them.
Right.
Most of these are teaching, they were designed to be more of a clinical. They teach in the clinical arena, and they're going to lead in the clinical arena, but not as much inside the academia. They're going to be less research.
And I guess my question is are they able to attract enough PhD OTs to be able to staff and train the next generation of master's occupational therapists?
From what I see in my research, yes.
That's not been a problem?
No.
Okay. So how many master's OT programs do we have in our state?
One. I'll take that back. There's one PhD program, and there are 6 Masters of Occupational Therapy programs in the state.
Okay. So I guess your motion was to what, to table this until we had additional information, so that answers my question.
I would love to have someone from their institution here to answer my questions. I'm not against it. I'm just not, I don't have enough information. I don't feel like I have enough information to make a good decision on this today. And I certainly don't want to undermine what you've done and your work and your investigation, and I respect that. But I believe that when I made my decision with regard to the DNP program, that I was acting on information that made me believe that the curriculum was geared towards helping us provide primary care nurses. And when I have looked at that curriculum now, I've examined it, and there's not a lot in there, in my opinion, that supplements what nurses need to be doing in the field to take care of primary care patients. So at this point, I question the value, I question the value of the DNP program. I think it can be very valuable, and I know that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I think the curriculum needs to be revised to make it pertinent to what nursing is going to be in the future. That's my position.
So let's stay on the OT and not go into nursing. Let me ask Rex. So if we table it today, will this hurt us for a timeline or tell us exactly the consequences? No. We certainly can table it. I'm just saying I want to know all the consequences.
If we were to table it, I'm not even know when it would come back again for a vote. The April board meeting.
We bring it to the board meeting?
I would like to see, I think we came in.
We're going to come here first. We can just bring it back to the board.
Is that okay?
Sure.
I think it's going to get close to the deadline of that 1 year. That's what was concerning me.
Right. We do have a timeline for the coordinating board in looking at these. So
there is a year timeline attached to every proposal that comes through, and so And if there's no action taken within a year, then it's automatically approved.
Right.
And so, I think if it comes back in April, though, we should be okay.
I have to go back and look at the
So
we probably need to
why don't we
confirm that.
request someone from the university to be here in April, and then we'll put it on the agenda
That's
under.
fine.
Okay.
If that's agreeable.
Oh, well,
So
let's take a vote.
Are we certain
Yeah, we
that
have
that's
them.
not going to result in automatic approval?
That's what I need to go look at the.
No, she- There you go. So if y'all want to try and call the school, and we can come back to it.
Sure.
Right, so I can make that decision to
The fact that the school.
postpone a vote right now, and we'll see if we can, you want to try and do that? All right.
And we're also going to double check the date.
Oh, good. Excellent. All right, well, let's move on to the next agenda. Item 5A3 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation regarding the University of Texas at El Paso for a Master of Science degree with a major in software engineering. Rex.
Well, thank you. This is a proposal from UTEP to create a Master of Science degree, in software engineering. This also builds on a lot of their own strength in engineering. As you can see from the blue pages, they have degree programs in a lot of other engineering fields. And this is going to be a traditional face-to-face 30-hour program. This also will ask them to hire a new faculty member. They will actually assign, or they're going to hire one new faculty member to make this program work, but they also have existing bachelor's degrees programs, and so this would not be too burdensome on them to create the master's degree program. And with regard to cost and expenses and so forth, they've covered that, as you can see on the second page of your blue pages. The demand for the program seems to be fairly moderate. One of the things about El Paso is that it's being out on the western edge of civilization there. Then, it's, the number of degree programs in a 100-mile radius is almost always zero for them, since we don't count New Mexico, I guess. In that sense, then they do tend to fill needs that they wouldn't have otherwise, and so this seems to be a program where there is some demand for it, as evidenced by the proposal. And we do look at things like employer surveys and advertisements and that kind of stuff, and also some projections. And so the projections are there that this program would actually meet the demand.
I move approval.
I second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Motion passes. Item 5A4 is consideration of a request regarding the University of Texas at Arlington for a Master of Construction Management degree with a major in construction management. Rex.
Thank you. And this also comes under the engineering SIP, which is why it's being brought forward to you, even though it says construction management. And I should point out I believe there are a couple of members from UT Arlington here who can help address questions if you have on this program. And I apologize, but I will not try to pronounce either one of your names. And so if they need to ask questions, I'll let you introduce yourselves to the members of the board. But they are here if they need to ask questions about this. This is one of those programs, again, that Arlington also has a strong background of engineering programs, and so they also have a lot of existing resources to draw off of to make the program work. And again, they'll be required to do the same 5-year annual reports to the coordinating board so that we can track their contingencies. And in fact, that's the only contingency they have, is that they actually submit their annual reports, which I think is also indicative of the strength of their existing programs and facilities, and that they can draw off of them to help make this proposal
Dennis,
program
you had a
work.
question? Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, I move approval.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5B is an update on Texas Tech University Health Science Center in El Paso. So this Health Science Center at El Paso was established during the 83rd Texas Legislature session. Dr. Ted Mitchell, interim president of Texas Tech University at Health Science Center, and Dr. Manny De La Rosa, the founding dean of the institution, will provide an update. Be sure you push the red button. There you go.
There we go. Much better. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update. At the last time we were before the board, we were requested to share some of our successes and actually some of the lessons learned in establishing the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center at El Paso. And so we would revel in the opportunity to share some success stories and move forward with this. Let me begin by addressing some of the history of Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center in El Paso. We began as a regional campus in 1973 of the Texas Tech School of Medicine. At the time, there was no Texas Tech Health Sciences Center. It was the School of Medicine. We were chosen to provide patient care and train residents from Lubbock in infectious diseases, diabetes, primary care, specifically addressing issues in migrant health and community-oriented medical sciences. The Health Sciences Center grew in Lubbock, and there was a lot of discussion between the two cities. And in 1999, Chancellor John Monford shared a vision for a full four-year medical school in El Paso, separate from the Health Sciences Center. From the medical school in Lubbock, but part of the Health Sciences Center in Lubbock. In 2007, the Paul L. Foster School of Medicine was granted initial approval by this body, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. That was immediately after Mr. Paul Foster gave us a very generous naming gift of $50 million. Those were the two triggers that really initiated the success of the program. To veer a little bit from my prepared statements, those two triggers came almost back to back and laid the groundwork for true success. In 2008, working with the staff at the Higher Education Coordinating Board, and I particularly want to give kudos to Dr. Stacy Silverman. We were able to achieve preliminary LCME accreditation, and we were permitted to sit at our first class. Again, I'm going to move off of our prepared statements and very specifically comment on our experience with new accreditation standards from the LCME and the role of the board in assisting with us. When we first made contact with the LCME, their staffers were very, very diligent about enforcing the existing accreditation standards. They had not established a medical school in 30 years. And so, anywhere in the United States. And so, back in 1999, when we first started having conversations with them, they came with their list of standards, and to this day, we kid about it now, but it really was a learning experience wherein we sat with the site visitors and went through the accreditation standards. And just to give you an example of what the accreditation standards were, there was one standard where we had to have a self-study by the students at the school, critiquing the school, giving back feedback, etc. A very reasonable standard for an accredited school going through reaccreditation. But I sat with a site visitor and said, we don't have a class. How do we do a self-study on a class? Well, it's a standard. If you don't meet it, we can't pass you. Well, we can't seat a class until you have accreditation standards. So we went round and round and round and round. And actually, staff at coordinating board was able to have off-the-line discussions with them and help them realize that they needed a new set of standards. We'll come back to that when we go through some lessons learned. In 2009, Chancellor Ken Hance announced his vision for a full-fledged health sciences center in El Paso, Health Sciences University, as it was called, and we chose our first charter class and seeded that first charter class. In 2010, the Hunt Family Foundation in El Paso donated a $10 million gift to Texas Tech University system. This donation was used to develop an autonomous, fully accredited nursing school in El Paso. In 2011, as a result of this gift, we were granted initial approval by the Texas State Board of Nursing and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to admit students. Also a lesson learned there in the difference between accreditation standards between medicine and nursing. In 2012, the Board of Regents voted to authorize the Health Sciences and Texas Tech University Health Sciences at El Paso to work with the state legislature to designate a university as a freestanding degree-granting institution. In 2012, the pinning ceremony for the first cohort of traditional undergraduate and the first cohort of second-degree students from the Gail Grief Hunt School of Nursing was held on December 15, 2012. And then in 2013, the Paul L. Foster School of Medicine received full accreditation from LCME. And in May of 2013, the Paul L. Foster School of Medicine graduated its first class of doctors and first class of nursing graduates from both the Gail Grief Hunt School of Nursing and from the Paul Foster School of Medicine. In May of 2013, May 18th, my birthday, the governor signed into law the bill establishing the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center at El Paso. Last but not least, the Gail Grief Hunt School of Nursing received a 5-year full accreditation for its baccalaureate degree from the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education. So you can see the role of the coordinating board, the role of the interaction of the accrediting bodies, and the role of the community in supporting the success of these schools. In 2013, a regional branch of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences established a class as approved by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Now, notice this is a regional branch. This is not a freestanding institution. And so we currently have Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center at El Paso with 2 institutions and the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center, for lack of a better term, in Lubbock with a regional branch of the Graduate School in El Paso. Under our existing system, Texas Tech University Health Sciences at El Paso is part of the Texas Tech University system. It is the 4th university within the system. Everybody knows Texas Tech University, the general academic degree granting entity. Then there is the Health Sciences Center, and I hesitate every time I say Lubbock because we are a distributive campus. We do have 8 campuses across the state, but we have to find a better way to designate it, perhaps the I-27 corridor or something else, but to distinguish it from TTU-HSC at El Paso. Just a reminder that Angelo State University is part of the Texas Tech University system, and of course, Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center at El Paso is now the 4th institution. A lot of questions about why a separate health sciences center. The first and probably the most obvious is the geographic separation and truly geographic isolation of El Paso. I believe somebody on the board called it the edge of civilization. We're still civilized. We're still in Texas, but we're 350 miles from our administrative base. That causes some communications issues. It causes some administrative issues, but very specifically some very different. Cited differences in populations that we serve and missions. The demographic difference from our administrative base is striking. El Paso is now 85% Hispanic, very different than our base along the I-27 corridor. We have divergent missions. The conversation about having different institutions and different medical schools really occurred during a research symposium, wherein the faculty at El Paso participated in a research symposium, and the emphasis really was on rural and aging healthcare, which is what our population is in the Panhandle. It's rural, it's aging. El Paso certainly is not rural. There's 800,000 people in the city, almost 1 million in the surrounding county. If you count some of the people in Mexico, some people could argue 3 million people that need service, that need education, etc. Very different people. The research infrastructure is very different missions, and so we now have 2 institutions with 2 different research missions, with 2 different population bases that we can stand on to serve the Health Sciences Center. Our clinical mission is different, our research mission is different, and certainly rural versus urban is very, very, very different. Aging versus a young population in El Paso is very, very, very different. And I've spoken about our population basis. And so as we begin to develop, let me give you a summary of where we are now and where we hope to go. We currently are expanding our classes. We are at 314 medical students. We just admitted our second class of 100 medical students. We have 53 nursing students currently on the campus. We have 250 residents in 16 residency programs, basically 10 residency programs and 6 fellowships. By 2015, that's not so far away, in 8 months. We will have 400 medical students. We will have 300 nursing students. We expect to grow to 600 students over the next 5 years in nursing. Massive growth in nursing, very specifically. We will have 300 residents in 16 residency programs. Again, we're looking very specifically at which new fellowship programs we need to establish and which we need to replace. The management of the transition is really what I think the lessons learned are here. And let me turn over my presentation to Dr. Ted Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Dr. De La Rosa. The transition, this has been this kind of where the rubber meets the road in the last few years. Once the governor signed the bill in May of this year, because El Paso has been an existing part of the Health Sciences Center for the past 40 years, the work that we're doing right now is to go through and look at the various functionalities of the university and start slowly kind of peeling off these things like the layers of an onion. I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but these are just examples of what it takes to peel things off. You've got to think about how are we going to work IT, how are we going to work library services, how are you going to work a president's office, how are you going to work all these things so that you can have a freestanding institution that still collaborates with its sister institution, but in a way that is fully functional and fully independent on its own. With this, we've had some date lines that we have set up for the transition. We have the SACS deadline, which is going to be 2020, and the reason for this is one of the SACS accreditation requirements is that you have at least 3 years of independent budgets submitted to them for their review and their approval. So we're going to have them as part of the SACS accreditation for the Lubbock campus until you've had 3 years of separately established budgets. And our first separately established budget will be with this LAR coming this summer. So that gives us 15, 16, and 17 to have it for submission after that to SACS. January 15, State of Texas for the next legislative session. This is when we'll have a new LAR with a separate budget for HSC El Paso versus HSC. And then I just showed you some of the functionalities. And with that timeline, this is a little bit of an illustration of where we are. And actually, the Paul L. Foster School of Medicine, with their last visit, the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, the first one there highlighted in yellow, they actually did well enough that their next accreditation visit's not going to be in 2015. It's been pushed back to 2016, which is great for the School of Medicine. It speaks to the work that they've done. However, what it does, if you look at that, we're going to have accreditation for LCME, for the School of Medicine, for the GSBS, as we come back looking for a freestanding GSBS at some point, for the Gail Reeve Hunt School of Nursing through the CCNE, their national accrediting group. We're going to have a lot of these accreditations lining up almost simultaneously. And although a lot of the information is the same that you're using, as you guys are well aware, how you have to deliver the information is very specific to each group and very detailed. So we have a lot of work cut out for us, but the good news is, one of the reasons that this is occurring like this is because in our initial accreditations with the schools independently, they've done so well with the accrediting groups. And so with that then, Mandy, do you want to?
Sure. We have a list of lessons learned. Very specifically, what I mentioned earlier was very, very close communication with the accrediting bodies. Each of the accrediting bodies has very different methodologies. Just to highlight and contrast, the LCME, which is the accrediting body for the medical school, will not let you seat a class until that you have accreditation standards. The opposite is true with CCNE. They will not review you until you seat a class. And public health is the same. Others are very different. The story that I told regarding the accreditation standards for the LCME is true on multiple levels, and so close. I almost said close personal contact, didn't I? But close contact, close communication with accrediting bodies is absolutely crucial. Designating a singular point of contact for accreditation within the Health Sciences Center is absolutely essential. One person to manage all of those communications, so that the institution knows where to move. All questions are funneled directly to that person or that office, is absolutely essential, because universities tend to be decentralized offices, and when an accrediting body calls, you need that one person to be able to make sure that's there. If you noticed, our history is that we built piecemeal. We began with a regional campus. We built on top of that experience. We then moved from the medical school, built a regional campus of a nursing school, moved on to a full accrediting freestanding nursing school. That administrative experience for your personnel is invaluable. Building a step at a time and bringing in people with expertise to augment and complement the experience that's there is absolutely essential. The other lesson learned is that we learned, and I wish we could take credit for this, but there was a fiscal crisis in 2008. We were smack in the middle of having a discussion about building an institution right in the middle of that fiscal crisis. It forced us. It was actually fortuitous for us. It forced us to be very, very, very efficient and very, very, very deliberate in building the administrative infrastructure on a very limited budget. You had to make a decision on a certain position, almost a position at a time, even a staff member at a time, in order to be efficient. One possible negative lesson learned is that separation has impact not only on the schools that you are building, but also on the other schools in the system. And we've learned to be able to communicate very clearly what the expectations are and analyze from both sides what the impact on both schools, both institutions are. There have been some unexpected discoveries in terms of planning a program, planning a new office, even a new support service, and yet not taking into account what that does to the existing school. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Ted.
Yeah, no, as you know, the idea is we went from being right at the largest health sciences center in the state to being one that's the newest, the smallest, and one that's also now not very large. And what that does for, if you look at and we'll call it the Lubbock program, but it's really Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, all of other parts of West Texas. All of a sudden, if you look at your faculty to student ratios, they change. If you look at your number of graduates, they change. So everything changes for the mothership, if you will. Nothing that's insurmountable, but it's something that you have to take into account as you're looking through it, which is one of the reasons why, I'm the guy that's always going back and forth between the two schools saying, listen, I'm not Lubbock, I'm not El Paso. We're the ones trying to make this thing functional and vibrant for everybody. And I do believe that having this history of having worked through as a regional campus, then tagging on some schools, and then eventually kind of spawning off into a new university worked quite well. The downside to having it come from a university that already exists, there is some benefit to having people think about something completely and totally unencumbered by a historical perspective. You know, that you get, in some cases, you get ossified thinking about, well, this is the way this needs to be done, and we've really tried to work against that. If something, all the things that seem to be very functional, you pick them up. The things that are not functional, this is an opportunity to change them. And so that part of it's worked out well. But if you're not careful, the tendency is to just do the same thing that you've been doing over and over, whether or not that was the most effective way to do it.
The two more lessons learned. I think one of the comments that I hear over and over again is that all of your schools have a sponsor in the community. The Gail Griefun School of Nursing, the Paul L. Foster School of Medicine. That's a reflection of the kind of community support that we have. It's not only financial, but it's also political, spiritual, sometimes moral support. But that kind of community support really allowed us to be excellent stewards of the state's investment in us. We were able to meet some of the costs and some of the program needs through community support financially, and that spirit of can-do throughout the entire state really supported us effectively. And I think that's the last lesson learned that we want to highlight, and that's that the coordinating board from the very beginning said that this is something that we can do. I remember sitting before the coordinating board. I didn't know what a TRB was at the time. Okay, I'll be the first to name it, and we were requesting the possibility of building a building, and I was thinking I'm going to have to go out and find $30 million for our first building, and I'll never forget. Somebody with blonde hair leaned over and gave me a little note that said, "Look into TRBs." Okay, that was the very, very supportive, unofficial kind of support that we received from the Higher Education Board. That's Texas. We can do these things.
Chairman Hahn says he has $50 million for you now too.
Actually, Chairman Hahn. No, I'm not going to tell you about Chairman Hahn. He can tell more stories on me than I can tell on him. So.
Okay.
And keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And this, by the way, is not a drawing. This is a photograph.
Yeah, this is actually where our campus is now. Just a little picture to remind people that there are mountains in Texas. This was taken by one of our medical students from his apartment, and this is what we're looking at in the future. Bottom line, the can-do effort from the coordinating board was very, 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 very appreciated, both formally and informally. You were the keys to our success. We look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you so much for coming. Are there any questions?
Madam
Discussion?
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment. Dr. De La Rosa, you have paid our board a wonderful compliment today by saying we're the can-do board. I don't know you personally, but I know of you for a long time through a colleague of mine, Dr. Randall Cox, and I'm going to tell you something. Based on what he's told me about you over a long period of time, you're the can-do guy. You have been the, from what I can tell, the rock, the solid force, the unwavering component of this whole thing. Weren't you there from the very beginning? You're the
I've been in El Paso for 30 years as an employee of the
founding dean now of the medical school.
And a psych patient before then.
I like I said, I don't know you personally, but I've heard so many wonderful things from him he's a colleague of mine over the last 10, 15 years. You're a man of integrity, a man of vision, a man that doesn't take no for an answer, and I applaud you for doing something that every one of us in this state can be truly proud of. Thank you.
The state of Texas has been kind enough to employ me for the last 30 years.
Sir, thank you for not taking no for an answer and staying the course.
Mr. Chairman.
You know, I would say just my residence in El Paso since 1973, or 74. I don't think there's been anything that has created such fervor in El Paso since the creation of the Paul Foster Medical School and the Gale Hunt School of Nursing. But it's not just all of the coordination. You know, the city has been on full support. Texas Tech University, you know, when you look at what they were doing, it's basically tearing something in half and making them both continue to work while all that was going on. So it did take a tremendous amount of effort, and Manny, I know you've had the nose to the grindstone for years, and Ted, you know, you've been such a welcome addition. I guess you're trying to work yourself out of a job or something.
About half.
Just a couple of questions. I know the MCA, the Medical Center of the Americas, is in the process now, and that whole thing is basically supportive of the medical school.
Sure.
And that's some huge financial commitments. I know they're building some research facilities in one floor of their building that I guess some of them has to be contained to make sure that none of the bugs get out or whatever. And I think you're still looking for an additional research building.
Correct.
That I'm sure Manny will use his skills, newfound skills.
We'll look into TRBs.
The TRBs.
Manny was going to be the Harold Hahn Research Building.
Yeah. It'll be. I don't think it'll be near as large
Madam
of a
Jenkins
facility that you might need. But the collaboration between Health Science Center in Lubbock and El Paso, how many of those medical students actually did their last couple of years in El Paso? Didn't a lot of those students come to El Paso anyway before the creation of the standalone med school?
Yes, they did. As I mentioned early on, from 1973 until 1997, we were a regional campus, meaning that the third and fourth year students came to the campus. We have over 700 alumni from that program with the existing Health Sciences Center. I is one. I am a product of the Texas Tech system. I went to medical school in Lubbock and then moved down to El Paso and did my third, fourth years, did my pediatric residency program. The class of '84 is celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. We're having a reunion. There are multiple stories of how Texas Tech came to El Paso, took over a fledgling residency program, and grew a health sciences center.
And you're still practicing some?
I haven't gotten it right yet. Yes, sir.
Still practicing?
I'm still practicing. No, I see children half a day a week.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wonderful story.
Thank you so much for coming.
Congratulations.
All right. Agenda 5C is notification of change in organization for regional accreditor, the Higher Learning Commission. This is informational only. Rex.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where the North Central Association, for a long time, accredited both secondary and post-secondary institutions, and then much like SACS did a few years ago, they've completely separated their accreditation of higher education from secondary education. And really this is just a notification to us that they've completely separated those two. And since we don't actually mention them by name anywhere in rules, it doesn't require any rule changes. It just requires us to alter a little bit the way we deal with certificates of authorization and authority for out-of-state schools.
Any questions? Not. We'll move on. Item 5D is an update on the progress of adult basic education, post-secondary education transition report. Judy Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. In January of 12, we had to develop a plan for the work that we were doing around adult basic education. And now with the 83rd legislature, which is Rider A 28, there became a different scenario, and it joined our agency with Texas Workforce and TEA to come together to develop a strategic plan around adult basic education and literacy work. And so, in addition to what happened with that legislative session, originally TEA had the authority over Texas Workforce around ABE. And so now that authority has been transferred to Texas Workforce. And so what this report is that will be brought to the full board in April is the review of what we have done over the past 2 years, bringing the three agencies together now to look at the recommendations on how we will move forth with what we have learned from our work in the past 2 years. This is a legislative requirement. It must be submitted by May the 1st to the legislature, and so this is what is before you. There are 6 recommendations in the report that speak to not only the placement, the advising, the support services to students, but how we will be moving forth as 3 agencies to continue the enhancement and development of these programs.
I don't believe there's a vote required on this. This was an update. Any questions for Judy? If not, we'll continue on to item 5E, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation relating to the funding of professional development regarding the Puente Integrated Reading Writing Model. Excuse me, Judy.
I think it was the October board meeting. The Puente project was highlighted here. They made a presentation because they had received one of the highest honors from the Bill Gates Foundation. And we have continued the advancement of this work here in Texas, and we are asking permission to provide them an additional $150,000 to continue with the technical training and professional development to advance this project across the state. The other thing that has occurred, and this is the integrated reading and writing, which is also part of our redesign of developmental education, but now this is also being looked at by the Mathway Project as a joint effort because of what Mathways does and what Puente does in terms of that integration of work, but also that professional development training that's incorporated. So this is what we bring forth to you today.
Questions?
Approval.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Yes?
Point of discussion, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the measurement of the success is very important in these type of programs, and clearly there's a documentation that this is money well spent and it's effective. And so I would just want to point that out because I think a lot of times we do things and we don't measure whether it's working or not. And clearly this one is measuring and it is achieving its objectives probably better than many expected. Would you not say, Doctor?
Yes, because I know when when Puente first approached us, it was much discussion before we even agreed to even seed a small amount of money, and as it moved forward, and even though they had a 30-year history, because they started off 30 years ago, this isn't new, but it was certainly new to Texas, but the Valley at South Texas College decided they wanted to give it a try, and it has really shown the impact, especially with the work around where before we were teaching reading and writing as separately, and now we've integrated them together. That's a massive change for institutions. And so it definitely, the results have proven the money was well spent.
Further discussion? If none, we have a motion on the table in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Thank you. Motion passes. 5F was on the consent calendar. 5G is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the approval of amendments to provide additional funding to current regional teams and to fund additional regional teams for the vertical alignment training project to coordinate and implement House Bill 5 from the 83rd Texas Legislature regular session. Judy.
This work around our, what we call avatar, our vertical alignment teams, is a classic example of what HB 5 has really brought to reality for us. Over the years, we have worked very hard to try and create that seamless pipeline between K-12 and higher education. Because of the work with Avatar, which was the vertical alignment of the content areas of math and science and English, we did not do this on our own. We connected to UNT, then connected to service centers, which is part of the K-12 system, and then incorporated the work of our P16 councils to bring together a collaboration of dialogue around curriculum, and that connectivity of curriculum from the K-12 world into our post-secondary world. As a result of that work, we created 12 networks, or regional teams, working as entities that I have just described to you. And what we have done is not only created the teams, but begun to impact the discussion around curriculum, very similar to our pathway work. But what this has done is open a door for us to help us expand that collaboration around HB5. You are aware that HB5 is a new curriculum bill of the public schools. One of the major components of that is our work with the K-12 world around the college prep courses. And so what we would like to do is take the work that we have learned from creating these alignment and regional teams and expand it to help improve that collaboration between our agencies and the K-12 work in terms of that curriculum especially. So what we are asking is to continue to fund 12 of the teams that are out there now, to increase the funding to UNT to serve as that regional coordinator for expanding this collaboration, to add 9 more so that then we have covered the entire state in order to help this dialogue take place. And that is the request that is before you. Also wanted to mention that what we have learned not only has impacted faculty across the state, but this concept received an award because of that work they won the award by the Texas Association of Partners in Education, called the Crystal Award for Community Partnerships with Impacting of Education. And so it's definitely shown that it has worked. It is causing the teams to come together, but most importantly, it's affecting the improvement of curriculum.
Move approval.
Questions or discussion? I have a question. Judy, so obviously UNT holds these regional centers accountable.
Yes.
Then they report to you. How do we know their accountability?
We have reports.
They report back to you.
Yes, they are required to, first of all, they have monthly fiscal reports, and then they have the quarterly reports that shows the work based on the outcomes that they are to achieve and where we are in that process. And those are monitored. There is a director that oversees this. It's under the direction of Priscilla Martinez, but under the total oversight of Dr. Kristen Kramer, who oversees that unit.
Okay, very good. Other discussion? If not, those in favor say aye. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, 5H and I were on the consent calendar. Now we're going to return to 5A2. So this is the occupational therapy doctorate program at UNT. So the research done by staff in the last little while has the decision is that if we table the motion, we can't readdress it till our committee meets again. If we vote to a motion to postpone till the April 2014 board member, we can discuss it and take care of it then, and that fits within our calendar because it would be on the agenda anyway for the board. So if you want, I would entertain a withdrawal of your table motion. So let's vote.
Vote it down on table, and then
Is that correct?
a motion to postpone time certain. Vote down on the table with the intent.
So I'll take a vote on the table motion. So I have to vote, but what we want to do is vote down the table motion. Okay, so vote aye if you want to table the motion. All in favor say aye. Vote no if you do not want to table.
No.
All in... Vote aye if you want to table the proposal.
Till the June
Right,
meeting.
board meeting, yeah,
It's gonna be
June.
on the table here.
Only the committee could address it again if we table it.
Okay. About some of the questions.
We don't have those answers right now, right?
The suggestion would be to full board in April and have the staff bring those
That
answers
makes
then.
sense.
If
We'd be within our timeline.
you had voted for this proposal today, it would still have to go to the April board meeting. So we can still be on schedule, whatever you decide, and you'll get the information
Right.
you want at the time and have the institutional representatives.
It's not going to
When is a one-year timeline? When is it submitted?
There's a serious question whether that new timeline even applies to this. That was part of SB 215, which didn't become effective until September 1. And part of the effectiveness of that was dependent on the coordinating board adopting rules, which it's done, but that was all after this proposal from Texas Women's was received by the board. So I'm not sure it even applies, but regardless of whether it did, it should still be timely at the April board meeting for the simple reason that it was going to the April board meeting anyway.
It's not going to delay
I
it.
guess I'm asking, what was the submission date?
Sometime last April, I believe.
James.
April 7th, 2013.
Submission date was April 7th.
Oh, sorry, March 7th.
Sorry, March 7th, 2013.
So we're already in violation of that.
Well, except it was submitted before the legislation took effect.
I understand that.
Right.
So that's the question of whether it...
But our point is, if we postpone it today, we're still within the timeline that we originally had expected to take a vote.
And the board
Yes, ma'am.
has to approve the program. The committee,
Right.
if you were to approve it, it still
Still has to go to the
has to go
board.
to the board for approval.
So we're not delaying things, but I don't want to delay it, but
All right.
So you're looking to a motion to postpone it to time certain to the April board meeting?
We didn't take our final vote to table. So we had no one voting to table. All opposed to tabling say aye. Aye. Motion fails. So now I would take another motion to postpone to the April 2014 board meeting. Okay. Have a second? Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor to postpone? Question, discussion.
I'm going to be on the record that I will not support this unless it comes to us at the full board in a bifurcated fashion, such that the program would be an add-on program and require a master's already be obtained in order to enter the program, and that the institution would retain the course offering for the master's program. At the very minimum, I think the institution has to clarify its intentions on both of those points. Otherwise, I would not be able to support that.
And I believe that was clarified in the proposal.
and could we get some information prior to the meeting so we can read it, and that way we won't have to ask a lot of questions in the meeting,
will
particularly
have
things
that.
with regard to the curriculum. I'd like to know what's in it.
Very
Please-
good.
Please, Madam Chairman, thank you.
Yes, sir. Other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, council. Agenda item 6 is adjournment.
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
All right. Have a motion? Have a second? All in favor, say aye.